Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 322 being recorded on, October 15th?
That would be correct.
2014. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Maury Tattleman.
We have a totally messed up podcast for you here. Alan is gone someplace flying in the air with his wife to Texas.
To Ebola land.
Yeah, he's flying into...
Oh, it's not.
Into the hot zone.
It's not.
Everybody knows
really
Alan
not.
is patient zero anyway, and that's
I was
how...
patient zero.
That's how it
He's
goes.
going to irradiate them all.
That's
Ebola.
right. He's going to take all the radiation from his body and clean up
that
the
he
state of
acquired
Texas.
over 15 years
Yeah.
in a nuclear submarine.
And Jeremy apparently just missed the bus. He said he missed the what was it? The ferry.
The ferry.
So he wasn't going to make it in time. We'll see if he I don't know if he joins later. Some magic will happen. Ken says no, but
Magic.
I'm just going to leave it open just in case. But in any event, we have some stuff we're going to talk about this week. It has been a modestly busy week in the world of PC hardware. I will start out by saying, if you missed our live stream last night, you missed out on some exciting gameplay. And damn it, Carl, you missed the chance to win some prizes, and that's dumb. And you don't want to miss the chance to win prizes. Prizes like a GTX 980, an Asus ROG Swift G-Sync monitor, and an NVIDIA Shield tablet. We gave all those things away.
Why didn't I watch? Oh, that's right. I'm not eligible to win.
Well, you could have still watched. Don't be angry about it. I mean, there's no reason to be bitter. It's okay.
Hey, come on. You just sent me a brand new GTX 480 last week for testing. So
I got one from the warehouse at NVIDIA's storage facility and started sending them out to everybody I didn't like. That's just how it happened. But anyway, so if you missed that stream last night, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but you screwed up. And how can you fix that? How can you make sure? We actually have a couple of ways now. I don't have a link to the other one, so I'll just mention PCPer.com/subscribe. If you go there, it's a page on our website. All it does is it gives you a little form here where we ask for your name and your email address, and you subscribe to a little mailing list, and we send you a note whenever we're about to do a stream. Sometimes, if it's a special event, I'll give you a notification the day before or a couple days before, and then again, like an hour before the show actually starts. And then I'll say, hey, we're going to give away some stuff. You'll probably want to participate. Literally, all you had to do to win yesterday was watch the stream. You had to fill out a form. You had to answer a very important question. But all you had to do was watch the stream and answer 3 questions. Name, email address, and Ryan. Like, those are the only 3 things that you had to answer. So if you missed out on that, good news is we'll have another one next week, another Borderlands stream next week where we're going to give away, get this, guys, I'm going to reveal the prize list now. 5 SLI bridges, the new fancy ones. 1 Asus ROG Swift G-Sync monitor. And 1 Acer XB280HK 4K G-Sync monitor.
Ooh.
So NVIDIA's stepping up their game on what they're providing for giveaways, so make sure you tune in for that. And again, PCPer.com/subscribe. Make sure you get the notifications there.
So how does physics look in Borderlands?
It looks good. There was a lot of it, and especially because the most of the game takes place on the moon. There's
A lot of floaty shit.
a lot of floaty shit. There's a lot of floaty stuff going around. Enough that it I think it even impacted. I think we had VSync on, so it might have hurt that a little bit. We have to have VSync on when we do a stream, otherwise you get weird tearing artifacts. But it looked pretty good, and we had a lot of fun. Me and Chris and Coonrad played around in about 90 minutes or something like that. And it's a funny game still. So if you're a fan of Borderlands or Borderlands 2, you're going to like Borderlands pre-sequel, obviously. Hopefully you picked it up. Also, we gave away some game keys yesterday as well, and we'll give away some game keys next week. But anyway, reviews, I guess. I don't know. We'll talk about some stuff that happened. Lee posted a review of the Corsair HXI 1000-watt power supply from Corsair. This is kind of like a redesign of a very popular line of power supplies from Corsair. I like is that what we call that, a chamfered edge?
Yes.
It's a little big for chamfer.
You've obviously built a doghouse.
No, I just own an iPhone. So that's how
okay.
I learned about chamfered edges. I don't even own an iPhone. Alan
Are
owns
they
an iPhone
Corinthian
and listens to them.
chamfers?
Diamond
Fine.
cut.
Corinthian chamfers on my phone.
80 plus platinum on these power supplies, super high efficiency, low heat. Corsair Link Ready, which is kind of the USB connection to your PC. Then you can use monitoring software for it. 0 RPM fan modes, which means up to 40% of the PSU's load without the fans even spinning. So you're talking about totally silent operation there, and low noise. Fully modular. You can see there on the back, 1,000 watt continuous, 7-year warranty on these.
That's a few years.
Yeah, that's a long time. It's a long time. $229 MSRP, so it is a little bit on the pricey side, for sure. But
You get it for
Say it
in
again?
power supplies, especially.
yeah, I think that's definitely the case. And there was a time period not that long ago where, do you remember getting power supplies with cases?
Yes, I do.
And
Like
wasn't that awful?
HEC 350 watt power supply. Antec had like 200 watters attached to it. You can get a 250 watt that, it was high at the time. And you look at those damn things now, and yeah, they weigh like 40 ounces, if most.
It's interesting now because if you look at the case and power supply market, it would almost be better now than it was then, right? Like Corsair makes great cases. Corsair makes good power supplies. Boom, combo some of those together. Antec makes good cases. Antec makes good power supplies. You look at XFX makes power supplies, and they just started selling cases. There are other companies. Who am I forgetting that does that? I think Intermax sells both. I guess the idea is people are going to be a little choosy about which components they want.
Okay,
so if
well,
the power
not only
supply is
that, but
different-
the quality of power supplies that we have now are so much better than what they were back then. So
Yeah.
you could bundle a case that had, edges on it that are going to slit your wrist without a problem, and they bundle in a 200 watt power supply, and you can buy the damn thing for 35 or 45 bucks. Do you really think you can do one of those with, one of the like that big cube case from Corsair and throw in an H1000? I mean, what is the price of that going to be? That's probably going to turn a lot of people off. So
Yeah.
segmenting and dividing those probably is a good idea.
Yeah, but now think of how much power you can, or how much compute you can get out of 350 watts if they put a small power supply in it. Like, I mean, that'll drive Haswell and a single GPU.
yeah. I mean, that might,
Not if you have a big CPU though.
well, I think it'd be all right. I mean, not overclocked. I think what would be interesting is, do they do that on like mini ITX designs, right? Where you're kind of power limited anyway. Like you can only put so many graphics cards or so many watts of a processor in a system if it's a mini ITX design. So maybe you couple that with a 500 watt power supply or something like that. But anyway,
That's what EVGA did with the Hadron Air.
yeah,
Remember?
EVGA did do that with the Hadron Air. That was a mini ITX, but that was more of a special case because it didn't take a standard power supply, so they kind of had to do it.
Do you know what my first specialty power supply was?
No.
PC Power and Cooling,
Yeah.
510 watt, and it was one of the first SLI certified
Yep.
power supplies out. And you think now that was a high end power supply for the time.
Yeah, and we
And we're
accelerated
looking-
quickly.
Yeah, very, very quick. Oh, here's a 1250 watt thing that
We're
you
up to
can
16
arc weld.
now. So
Yeah.
But the HX1000i, this is the one that Lee Ricks reviewed. They have the 850 and a 750i. The i kind of indicating that it has that connection for the Corsair Link. 229, 189, 169. It did get a gold award. The only weakness that it doesn't support some of the advanced Corsair Link features like the OCP trip points. If you are interested in that. Fully modular cases, fluid dynamic bearing fan for a long life, a fan test button, which is kind of nice. So even though it's not spinning, you can hit that button and make sure it actually would work when it was necessary. 80 plus certified platinum, 92% efficiency at 50% load. So worth keeping in mind if you're looking for a new high-end power supply. It's an interesting discussion, right? Because, you look at the 290X, it's using a lot of power. You look at the GTX 980, it's using a lot less power. When we did our 3 and 4 ways testing, which we'll talk about now, we do so at like under 800 watts or something like that for 4 GTX 980s. So it's kind of interesting to see how the dynamic has changed where if AMD kind of follows suit a little bit and makes a more efficient GPU in the next iteration, that you might need less power supply than you did a year ago or a year before that or a year before that. So,
Yeah, but is this the top end NVIDIA part that we will see?
no. I'm not saying the need for a 1,000 watt or 1,200 watt power supply is going to go away. But, I mean, think about running 4 GTX 580s, right? And how much power you need for that, or even 680s, right? You're talking about another 200 watts or so probably that you would need on top of what we have with the 980. Anyway, let's talk about that. We did a story where I looked at the performance of GTX 980s in 3-way and 4-way and 2-way and 1-way configurations. 1-way being not SLI, where we tested. I got my hands on a full set of GTX 980 reference cards from various places we're not going to discuss, but you can see them all sitting there on the Corsair, on the Asus Rampage 4.
Look,
Extreme.
it's the meat stack.
It is, and
It's you and your meat stack.
even if you don't ever buy it, or even if the performance is bad, that is still a pretty picture, right? Like if that were sitting in the window of a case, I think maybe you need a fancier SLI bridge for that. Should point out, NVIDIA, if you're listening, you should have.
You know what? You could drown a toddler in my panties if you saw that.
I don't. That's not. Butt sweat.
Cut.
And now the podcast is over. Anyway, I was going to have a really important thing to say here. NVIDIA, if you're listening, they don't like, so they made those fancy SLI bridges that look really cool. They have, for two card SLI, 3 card SLI, but they don't have 4 card SLI bridges for that, which is kind of dumb because like the people that would spend enough money for 4 GPUs probably would spend $100 on a 4-way SLI bridge that actually looks really cool as opposed to this kind of plain boring PCB. So, there might only be a dozen of them, but keep that in mind. Enabling 4-way SLI, super easy. I mean, the software side of this is dumb now. It's not even a problem for people. So, something interesting worth pointing out that was actually brought about when we first posted this story and had some comments asking questions about the scaling rates and how we worded our explanation of the scaling rates. So, as you add GPUs, the optimal multi-GPU scaling would be a perfect, 2x performance scaling, 3x performance scaling, 4x performance scaling, right? So this is how that would look. It would be a straight line or a 45-degree line, essentially. This is an example. If your single GPU performance was 14.7 FPS, Crysis 3 at 4K, perfect would go to 29.4, and then you'd scale on up from there, right? If you look at it in this direction, in terms of performance improvement per card added, it looks a little bit different, right? So ideally, with 2 GTX 980s, you would have a 100% scaling improvement. Now, when you add in that third GPU, you're only really going to get 50% more performance possible, right? Because you're going from 2 cards to 3 cards, you're adding 1 card. They're pre-existed to 50%. Therefore, the maximum you could get is 50% scaling there. And if you go to 4 cards, that maximum goes down to 33%. There are already 3 cards in the system. You're adding a 4th, 1/3 of that, 33%. So it's important when you look at the results, when I say like, hey, from 1 card to 2 cards, you got like 95% scaling, but from 2 cards to 3 cards, you're only getting like 42% scaling. Where 42% is actually pretty good. That's pretty close to 50%. So keep that in mind when you look through these results. If you look at our review or anybody else's review, really, of a multi-GPU configuration there. So now I'm going to walk through a couple of results, and I'm going to start with a good one. I'm going to start with probably the best result or the second best result in our testing. This is Crysis 3. Here you can see 4 different lines representing the performance of single GTX 980, 2, 3, and 4 cards. And you can see that there is definitely scaling going up from 1 card to 2 cards to 3 cards to 4 cards, and it seems to be pretty good, actually. A couple of places where maybe it's not as good as others, but throughout the majority of it, things look pretty good. Here's your frame times graph. A very good performance by SLI, even with 4 cards, maintaining a narrow band of frame times. Very little stutter, very little variances there. And if you look at the FPS by percentile, again, if you look at this 50th percentile mark, you kind of get an idea of where your averages are. Again, good scaling. And frame time variance, very, very low. Even at its 95% level, you're under 3 milliseconds of frame variance for that 5% of the frames there. And then at 4K, things look actually a little bit better. And then if we go down here, so here's your average frame rates. Now that we know that everything looks good in these graphs, we can just look at average frame rates, and you can see things step up pretty well here. At 4K, you're going from 14.7 to 28.2 to 39.4 to 51.2. So all it takes is 4 GTX 980s, and you can play Crysis 3 at 4K at very high quality presets. So who's ready to invest? You ready, Josh?
No.
It's only $2,200 worth of video cards.
I would like to buy a new pair of shoes, please.
Okay, well, think of
Can I
how
have
many
some more?
shoes you won't need if you can play Crysis 3 at 4K at 51 frames per second. I don't know how that logic works exactly, but
No.
You can just use 980s as shoes.
yeah, just use 980s as shoes very carefully. Don't step in puddles. It'd be all right. So that is a good example. That is one of the best examples of 4K scaling working great, right? So now let's look at one that's not the best. Let's look at Battlefield 4. Here's a game where I expected it to be pretty good. And what you'll notice is the black line here and the orange line, which is the step from 1 card to 2 card, is actually a good jump. It is a noticeable increase in performance. But the green line and that pink line that represent 3 and 4 cards are not great, and you can kind of see why. You kind of have this blah of stuff on the graph that's actually hiding the smoothness of the orange line behind there. And you can see that, when you start to look at these graphs, things look odd. The blue or the black line for single card looks good. The orange line actually looks really good for 2 cards. 3 and 4 cards, very modest average performance increases, and even when you get like to the 80th percentile, the frames are actually, you're getting 20% of the frames are worse with 4 GPUs than they are with 2. So that is bad news there. Same thing happens at 4K, no real changes there. And if you look at the average frame rate graph, you kind of see some of that, right? Two-way.
Ryan, did NVIDIA say anything about that? Like, was it because of the mantle optimizations?
No. I mean, this is running DirectX 11 code path and everything, right? So this is difficulty in multi-GPU scaling beyond 2 cards. It is a tough problem to solve. It's everybody it's not 100% on the driver, although the driver could fix a lot of it. It comes down to the game developers like building their engine in a way and building the game in a way that makes it capable of doing multi-GPU scaling. So even up to a certain point, there's at some point where NVIDIA's driver can do no more good, or at least in any kind of a reasonable time frame or cost. But if you look here at the averages, like you go from 58 to 94, it's pretty good, but then 94 to 110, not the best, and then it actually goes backwards a little bit when you add in that 4th card. BioShock Infinite's a bad example as well. If you look at Grid 2, I'll show that one real quick. We'll just scroll down to the average graph down here. You can see even at 25 by 14, scaling basically kind of stops after 2, or it stops being impressive. The other game that actually worked well, other than Crysis 3, was Sniper Elite 3, which I'll just go ahead and scroll down here. You can see, you're up to 350 frames per second at 25 by 14, highest image quality setting, so beyond necessary for sure. But if you have 4K, you're running at just under 200 frames per second with 4 cards. Again, beyond necessary, but not totally outside the realm. Like 2-way SLI gets you 100 frames per second. That's pretty good.
Good Lord, that game does not require a whole lot of horsepower.
It does not. I mean, 1 GTX 980, 4K, 55 frames per second.
You're just supposed to do 4K surround.
Yeah, do 4K surround then, exactly. So, performance-wise, it is, when it works, it seems to work pretty well, and when it doesn't work, it's really disappointing. So, nothing really, in my opinion, nothing has changed in 3-way and 4-way SLI. It's kind of always been I don't know how you just say it, like a niche of a niche of a niche market, right? Like you have to know going in that this isn't going to work with every game. And in some games it's going to make it worse, and you may want to turn off SLI or go down to 2-card SLI, which can be pretty frustrating if you've invested in 4 GTX 980s and only going to enable 2 for Metro Last Light or Battlefield 4, right? That's kind of, that feels dumb.
But you can use one for PhysX.
You could use 2 for PhysX. I don't think you can actually, but but here's that power consumption number actually, and that's actually I was wrong. It's less than 700 watts for 4 GTX 980s running a 4-way SLI, and this is power consumption was measured using Crysis 3, so we knew that it was properly utilizing all 4 GPUs, and it's in our best case scenario there. Sound levels, interestingly as well, jump up. Notice sound level from 1 card to 2 cards doesn't really go up very much, 36 to 37 decibels. And that is because there's a 2-card space between those 2 cards then, right? So the primary card, the top card, has plenty of air, access to air coming in that fan. However, when you get into 3-way and 4-way cards, they're sandwiched together. They're very close. Those fans have to spin faster to draw in enough air to keep the heatsink cool that's keeping the GPU cool, which means things get louder. And it's interesting, right?
Did you take the backs off of
this right here? I did. I actually tried it both. I tried it both, and this is kind of an interesting thing, right? So the fan speed is... So with the back panel open, meaning that back panel portion here is removed, it is open to air, fan speeds remain about 300 to 400 RPM slower throughout this band, right? Which is going to be a noticeable sound difference. And then temperature-wise, it doesn't look like very much in this graph, but it's about 5C, maybe 6, maybe about 5C difference in there. We're looking at like 82 to 86, 87 degrees Celsius. And this was measured on the, I think the second GPU, so one that is sandwiched on both the top and the bottom, right? You're suffocating it, and you're also trapping that heat on the back. And so it actually, this little design idea they had to have a backplate on it, but then make that portion removable when you're doing back-to-back card SLI does make a difference in your cooling, right? And then, there are a lot of cards that are going to come out with custom coolers that may not have this feature on there, but if you have one of the reference designs and you're running them next to each other, it definitely seems worth it to remove them. So here's our kind of summary graph, right? The multi-GPU scaling graph. The blue, this lighter blue line is the optimal one that I showed you. We talked about at the beginning of the discussion. You can kind of see how the games scale. This is 2-way SLI, 3-way SLI, and 4-way SLI. And you can see down here at 4-way SLI, you've got 3 games, Metro Last Light, BioShock Infinite, and Battlefield 4, that basically are at 0 or negative scaling by adding that 4th card. So it's kind of a letdown. But you got a couple up here. They're doing all right. Obviously you just need a wider collection of games. So,
or you just should buy 2 and be happy.
I think it is reasonable to say stop at 2 cards. I think it's probably more reasonable to say only buy 2 cards if you really need 2 cards. We've said it many times. Always buy the more expensive, faster GPU, single card, than 2 less expensive, that have equal or slightly better performance, right? So we'll talk about SSDs and, hey, RAID 0 them together, you're going to double your performance, and, you don't have a whole lot of stability issues. We'll debate that in a second. But with SLI, with graphics, SLI can do some great things, and so can Crossfire. The problem is you run into this issue where sometimes you're not going to get the best possible performance. There have been a lot of complaints on even NVIDIA's own forums at GeForce.com that said, hey, the Evil Within or Shadow of Mordor, they don't have SLI working yet. Now, NVIDIA will partly say, hey, we're kind of waiting on the game developer to do this one thing in a patch before we can actually enable it. We're working on it. We kind of have a way to do it. And I mean, that's a valid excuse. I believe them when they say Shadow of Mordor requires a game patch for SLI to function. But at the end of the day, gamers don't care whose fault it is. They care that they bought a second $300 or $500 video card and it doesn't work. Right? It's not doing anything. If you play Shadow of Mordor today and enable SLI, you get the exact same performance as you do with 1 card. So that needs to be fixed too. And when you go beyond 2, it's even more complicated and even less likely that you'll get a return on your investment.
So just for yourself, now that you have tested these, if you had $60, would you buy a single 650 TX 980 or would you buy two 970s?
Would I buy a single 980 or two 970s? So two 970s would be like what, $100 more or so, maybe 100.
Than a single?
Yeah. In that case, I might lean towards the two 970s because I think the performance delta of 970s and SLI over a single 980 is going to be pretty drastic. Very measurable. And in the games where that works well, it's going to be great. In games where it doesn't work, a single 970 should provide more than enough performance for 1080p for sure, and 25 by 14 probably as well. So worst case scenario, you're running at a single 970.
Which doesn't suck that bad.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's like, so I kind of just went back on my previous statement, but
I just kicked the chair out from under you. You're hanging.
But if somebody had said, "Hey, I can get two GTX 770s," for example, maybe I don't know if this is the case. Maybe they match performance with a 980, or maybe they're 15% faster. In one of those best case scenarios, would you get two 770s or a 980? I would get the 980. But if you say, hey, two 970s are 60 to 65% faster than a single 980 in that best case scenario, then you maybe lean towards the pair of 970s. Again, I'm just making these numbers up. Don't quote me on these. So it depends on what that delta is, I guess. But it's an interesting look at things, right? So there's still plenty of work for everybody to work on. I agree with you that two 970s, and especially with the way SLI tends to work and how well NVIDIA works really hard to support it. It's a nice combination for not a whole lot more. And when you're talking about, three monitors surround, it doesn't matter if it's 1080 or whatever, those two extra cards could make a nice difference in your playability. They could. So check out that review. It is on PCPer.com. A lot of results in there, a lot of numbers worth looking at if you are looking down that path or just curious about what the crazy people with all the money do with 3 and 4 GPUs in a system. You can see now. Let's take a shift over here and talk with Maury. We don't often have Maury on here when we do his motherboard reviews, so this will be...
Hey, that's Maury.
That's
when the
funny,
motherboard
Josh.
hits the case.
When the die shatters.
When you bend a pin or 3, that's Maury.
So this is a review of the GIGABYTE Z97X UD5H motherboard. And I don't know, Maury, give me a quick overview. What are we looking at with this board?
All right, so this Z97 motherboard is basically their channel series, kind of their mid-tier, upper mid-tier. It's not quite their high-end, but it's not their low-end. It's somewhere in the middle. It has a really nice feature set. I mean, the looks of it is kind of weird. Some people have made some comments about that the Z87s did look a little bit better, and I'll agree because this one's got a lot of gold on it. But it does have SATA Express. Yep. It does have M.2. It is a nicely performing board, and it's got like 6 or 8 SATA slots as well, depending on if you use SATA Express slots as SATA Express or if you just use them as straight SATA.
True.
The M.2 slot is really one of the big nice things they did is the placement of that M.2 slot. They actually put it right underneath they put it directly underneath the X1 slot that's all the way to the right of the board. That allows you to get to that slot, no matter if you have video cards in the board or not. It's
that's kind of
because
cool.
most manufacturers will put that either like in between the primary and secondary slot or off to the side or something. But actually putting it between the primary slot and the CPU is a really nice place to put it.
Maury, they sacrificed the battery position for M.2.
No, the battery would have stayed there, Josh. I'm sorry to say.
Sorry.
No, on higher end boards, you don't normally see that because usually
that is a sweet picture of that battery, Maury.
Oh,
did you use macro on that?
Up close.
I love you, Maury. I love you. Don't ever change.
Yeah.
Okay.
They do the separated audio PCB, which is nice. Some boards are doing it. Sometimes in the lower end they'll sacrifice that and not do it. They have the dual BIOS. They have all the goodies that you see on a higher end Gigabyte boards. The dual BIOS is always nice because if you blow a BIOS, you have another one, and I've done that a few times. It's just it performs well. What? Yes, it has the old onboard voltage points, which is also a nice to have. It's a really nice board. I mean, the looks of it again are not great, but
that's all personal opinion, right? Like you either like that color scheme or you don't, I guess.
And if you got a closed case, who cares? You got the features.
That's true.
Well, and a lot of that stuff is going to be hidden by all your coolers and all that stuff once you install the board. I mean, you're going to have your CPU cooler, you're going to have your video cards. It's going to cover up a lot of that stuff anyway.
Especially if you have a cooler like Maury, it's going to cover up a lot of those things.
Coolers, yeah.
So here's that picture of the massive cooler installed, and no issues with that primary PCI Express slot, even with the
reactor,
the unsightly bulge on the back of the video card.
The tumor.
Yeah. I was thinking more. Well, never mind.
Which vid card is that again? Is that the Hawk?
That is the.
It's a Lightning, isn't it?
Let me see. It's a twin Frozer. No, it is a Hawk. You're right. It's a Hawk.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Fine,
That's
Josh.
that Hawk. I traded you. Okay. Never mind.
One thing you will notice with this is with that the cooler I use. This is one of the last reviews. I'm using the NDH14 on. Most of the new reviews use the NDH15. So the 15, the difference is that the 15 is a little wider and it's got the weird cutouts.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So.
It's wider. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wider is better.
Well.
Anything stand out with the BIOS or applications or anything like that?
The BIOS, actually, they use the same UEFI BIOS they've been using on their entire Z97 line. Gigabyte's BIOS is really nice. I mean, they're one of the few manufacturers that actually offer 1080p mode. So your BIOS will actually scale to 1920 or 600 by whatever the 600 one is. But yeah, no, and you can color configure it and all this other stuff. I mean, it's got all the options. It's not laggy. It's very responsive. I mean, Gigabyte's BIOS is of the same quality as Asus's BIOS. They've come a long way.
Cool.
You don't have to do any of the control F1 shift and twirl to get the advanced features anymore or anything. Thank God they got rid of that.
Nice.
Wait, did you just say shift and twirl?
Yeah, you remember that whole thing on Gigabyte boards? You had to kind of do this weird key sequence to show the advanced features, the overclocking features.
I do kind of remember that. Yeah,
I remember the old ones.
Yeah.
It's like shift F11, but I don't remember shift and twirl. That sounds.
Do you have that button?
I was adding some of my own flair there, Josh.
Sweet. That is some sweet flair.
So, Maury, where does this board fit in the pricing scheme then?
The pricing scheme. This is a very nicely priced board. It's about $170 to $180.
Okay.
So, I mean, for all the options you get, you can do SLI on it. Two card SLI. You don't want to do 3 card because you lose out on performance on that third slot, and that third slot also shares bandwidth with the M.2 and with the USB. On these that's the one Achilles heel of the Z97 boards is that when you start stacking things on the PCIe video cards, or video bus, you start losing functionality of stuff on the board. You lose M.2, you could lose SATA slots, you could lose USB, So but that's just because of PCIe
I think
lanes.
for a $175 to $180 motherboard, you're probably looking at people who are not investing in, certainly not in 3 graphics cards, probably maybe even not 2. It does support 2-way SLI, and I think it says 3-way Crossfire, but that again is going through that extra the PCI Express from the chipset, I assume.
Yeah.
Also this does have 2 PCI slots.
Yeah, that was a weird thing. I think that's something you see on channel boards. I have asked other manufacturers about that, and the tagline they give us is that these channel boards are for corporate, so they're kind of catch-all boards. They go to corporate users, they go to regular users, everything. Corporate users like those. PCI, or they like the PCI slots because they still have PCI cards they use for whatever.
I still have a PCI sound card.
Josh has
using
a-
right now.
Josh has a PCI 56K
Modem
Yeah.
that I attach for my video.
He's got to attach to those porn BBSs still.
Jeez.
Well, you know what? Dip in.
All right.
Getting out.
So that's a pretty decent motherboard for the $177 price point. That is the Z97X UD5H from GIGABYTE. Maury has a bunch of other stuff in his review if you want to go check out all the BIOS screenshots of software, screenshots and descriptions of what it does, the benchmarks, device testing, all that kind of stuff, and overclocking results as well.
And it did get a silver award because I mean there was really nothing wrong with the board. I mean it's the CMOS battery placement. I mean the one thing that was lacking, that was kind of odd with that, was the missing Wi-Fi controller. Because I mean usually on those mid high range boards they start adding those kind of things on. But I think because it had M.2, because it had SATA Express, and it had the extra SATA controller, because they had I think they had either it was AS Media or Realtek SATA controller on there as well.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of start swapping things out. So.
Alan's not here. We're going to talk about storage anyway because it's an important story, and he abandoned us now that the fix is in. It's very sad. So we had talked about many times on this podcast the issues with the Samsung 840 EVO SSD and this weird performance degradation. If you had data that was written a long time ago, not even that long ago, like 3-4 weeks ago, and you tried to read from that again, it was slow down, sometimes drastically so, into the double-digit megabytes per second instead of the several hundred megabytes per second that it was supposed to be. As of yesterday, Samsung released the fixing
As
tool.
of today, supposedly.
As of today, it's out. Okay. Yesterday we posted about it, but it's now available publicly.
Is it actually?
Yeah. Yeah, I think Alan links to it in the story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it is a performance restoration tool and a new firmware. So I'm going to leave you guys to go read what the kind of semi-technical explanation is for it. Think of it mainly as voltage drift. And I would assume the firmware is changing the way that it checks for those drifts and doing it in a more intelligent manner. So even if it does drift, it's not checking it over and over and over again, saturating the SoC and thus slowing performance down incredibly drastically. The update procedure is apparently pretty simple. The one that is out today has to run on Windows, and the drive has to be a single drive, and it has to have a partition on it. There's a lot of weird things going on. And essentially, even though, see, we tested a whole bunch of these SSDs with this update and then performance results, the tool itself actually will update the SSD to a new firmware. And then you will shut down the machine all the way, and then you reboot, and it will continue on with what it calls the performance restoration part of it. And we're not quite sure exactly what it does, because it's not doing it through Windows. It's not sending a bunch of read-write commands through Windows. It's doing it all internally. And we were able to verify that it was doing something at the very least by looking at... So this is what Windows Task Manager sees when this drive was actively going through this restoration process. It shows 0 disk activity. However, we were monitoring the voltage to the SSD, and you can see here that for this, 4 to 6 minute time period, it is actively doing a bunch of stuff. It's using 2.5 watts or so of power throughout this whole process. And so we know that it was doing something. And Alan's guess is that it's basically, writing. I forget what did he say Samsung called it? Like getting the storage back into the state that it shipped at, or something like that. Our guess is that it's basically reading and writing everything once. It's basically going through and rewriting everything, over itself. So
because
that
you have to have a certain
refreshes
amount of
it.
space available.
You have to have at least
work,
10%
right?
drive capacity,
Yeah.
which Alan's actually confused by, because if it's doing what he thinks it's doing, it should need very little space to do that. But I'm sure they're erring on the side of caution for all that stuff. So once it's all done, this is kind of the fixed performance result. This was actually the drive that we were using for quite some time as one of our game storage drives on our GPU testbed. And you can see here we have performance now between 300 and 300. It's about 340 gigs or so per 340 megs per second straight across. No issues anymore with performance. So it's out there and it works. There are some caveats. If you're a Mac user, you're going to have to wait longer. If you're a Linux user, you're going to have to wait longer. What's that? Yeah.
If you love your data, you might want to wait longer.
Well, you should always. So this should be safe, but we had an instance where all of my data was deleted. Alan deleted all of my data on my 500 gig 840 EVO. And then he didn't back it all up. So what I would recommend is that you back up all of your data before you do this. And I know that it's a huge pain in the ass to do that because you got to find another drive, you got to mirror it. We're lucky enough here that we just have kind of hardware sitting around. Most people aren't like that. So the idea of just mirror your 500 gig SSD is more complicated than it should be. But
good thing you got fiber there.
Yeah, we re-downloaded all of our Steam games. It was like 123 gigs in like 36 minutes or something.
Oh,
like
you
that.
Suck.
Yeah,
just use Ghost.
It actually only peaked out this time at like 78 megabytes per second download speed. So I was a little disappointed.
Oh, that's awful.
I know.
Oh,
I know.
terrible.
I'm thinking about writing my congressman. Also, RAID. If you are one of the people that listen to us occasionally say, hey, you know what? If you're going to get a 500 gig SSD, maybe get two 250 gig drives and put them in a RAID 0 array. They're much more reliable now. And, as long as you don't have your mission critical stuff on there, you should be okay. If you are running 840 EVOs in a RAID array, you cannot run this tool either because it doesn't show up in Windows as that drive. It doesn't show up as a single partition. And so if you want to update those drives, you'll have to, mirror your array onto another disk, a hard drive or something, break your array, change the BIOS. So
you've given really, really wonderful advice, right?
Yeah, no.
Just RAID
I'm
everything.
totally going back on it now. I'm not going to say RAID 0 is a great idea anymore. I mean, this is a very rare case. Like if you're doing this with other SSDs, the Intel SSDs or Silicon Motion or Indie Links, Barefoot, whatever, like you wouldn't have any of this issue. This is a very odd issue for a unique flash combination, right? It's a TLC memory issue, which leads us to the last point, which is if you have an 840, a Samsung 840, not an 840 EVO, and you have this issue, we have no answer for you. Samsung has not released an update tool for that. They have not even really acknowledged that that is a problem or something that they're working on, so we're asking questions in that regard as well. So the tool is out there. If you are worried, if you're running Linux or Mac, you're going to have to wait for an ISO file that you will boot off of, and it will do all this supposedly without operating system independent. What was that, Ken?
End of the month.
Yeah, and they say it will be available at the end of the month, which is only a couple weeks away. So if I were you, and if you're in a RAID, it's possible that ISO might be able to do that as well. Iffy, because the ISO would have to be able to recognize the RAID drive without drivers. I don't know how that will work, but if you're running these in a RAID, I would wait for the ISO and see if it says it supports that, and then maybe you'd have less work to do manually to get that done.
Yeah, right, Ryan. With the RAID too, though, you could just make a ghost of the RAID of your drive, and then just split it and run that too. I mean, it's not perfect, but. Because, Ghost still works. I use Ghost on Windows 8, Windows 7. It still works. You got to have a DOS boot USB drive, but it still works. It still recognizes stuff. Even through X99 chipset, it recognizes stuff. So
as RAID arrays, though, if you set up a RAID array?
It should still see it. It's
iffy.
RAID array is... to that, it's an NTFS mount,
It depends on the controller and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
So it's iffy. The truth is, it's a pain in the ass, and this sucks. It sucks that you have to go through this process. It sucks you have to back up data. It sucks that you should be backing up data anyway, though. It sucks if you have RAID array. It sucks if you have an 840 and none of this applies to you yet. But at least they got it fixed out. They got it out relatively quickly. And what we're going to do now is we've run the fix and we've put some more data on these drives, and we're going to come back in like 3 weeks and see if performance is still good, right? Is this a permanent fix, or is this a one-time, please get off our backs fix? And that will be what's interesting. And that's a question they really need to answer if they plan on releasing like an 850 EVO, for example, right? There will be, if they were to release that product, there would be a ton of questions about, well, what about the 840 EVO? Why would we trust
Yeah, but
you
that
now?
architecture is so different.
Yeah, but people don't care. It's got the word
TLC,
EVO on the end of it.
Vertical.
It's still TLC VNAND.
Yeah, but VNAND, I mean, that throws a big wrench
It makes it more
in
complicated.
the physics.
It makes it more complicated, and they weren't able to predict that this would happen, right? So I think it justifiably puts a lot of questions in people's minds about that stuff going forward. So, but we'll see, and now we have another thing to look at. Now Alan will be tasked with, hey, Alan, put a 30 gig file on that drive and put it on the shelf. Mark a date on it for when you put that file on that drive, and let's go check it week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Just, hey, he needs stuff to do, so it's fine.
Oh, yes, we all need stuff to do.
Keep him occupied. Keep him occupied. All right, let's run through some news items relatively quickly. We already talked about this a little bit. The Borderlands, the pre-sequel game stream that we held on Tuesday, this past Tuesday, hosted by NVIDIA, powered by NVIDIA, hosted by us, I guess. But they donated some prizes, game keys, hardware, like I said, a Shield tablet, a GTX 980, and ROG Swift. We gave those away to people who just watched us play video games. Literally me and Chris Ray and Andrew Coonrad, who are guys at NVIDIA that are awesome. We played Borderlands for like 90 minutes, and we made penis jokes and stuff. And I don't know, I thought it was funny, but I guess I'm supposed to think it's funny. And we had a good time. We gave away hardware and we talked about the game, and I think it was fun. And we're going to do it again next week, next Tuesday. I'm almost sure it's going to be at the exact same time, which would be 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Not confirmed yet, but I'm almost positive that's what we'll do on October 21st. And we'll have 2 monitors to give away and some SLI bridges as well, and some game codes. So, stay tuned for that. And again, if you didn't sign up at PCPer.com/subscribe for that mailing list, there's another reason why you should. Damn it, Lenovo. They announce a bunch of stuff. When Lenovo announces stuff, they just
it's stuff. It's stuff that you
they
like.
just dump it on the table. They just flop it down on the table and go, here's all our stuff. Take it. Like it.
Feel the keyboard.
They don't.
You know you want to.
They're not usually that aggressive about it. I mean, they're really kind of gentle at first, and they take you out to dinner at the very least, right?
And then they bring out the 50-gallon
50 Shades of
thing
Lenovo.
of lube and jump in.
50 Shades of Space Gray. So what did they announce? Oh my gosh. The new Yoga 3 Pro and Yoga 14 tablets. What's that? Core. Oh yeah, that's right. These are Core M based, so that's why they're cool.
Yeah, so they're 14 nanometer.
Yes.
Broadwell.
Look at that hinge. It is
Look
a
at the size
watch
of that
band hinge.
It's a work of art.
It is kind of cool looking. I'm not gonna lie. So the
And
Yoga 2.
constructed.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yoga 2 Pro, 17% thinner than the previous Yoga 2 Pro. I'm sorry. The Yoga 3 Pro is 17% thinner than Yoga 2 Pro. It's 14% lighter at only 2.62 pounds. Lenovo attributes the size and weight reductions to its new watch band hinge, which uses 800 pieces of aluminum and steel to achieve a thin yet flexible hinge with 6 focus points that resembles a metal watch band. It's a 13.3-inch, 3200 by 1800 resolution screen.
Yeesh.
Yeah. And it's got a 720p webcam. I don't... What?
We're going to spend money where it counts.
Oh, man. 2 USB 3 ports, 1 USB 2 port, a DC input, 1 micro HDMI out, and 1 audio combo jack. That's pretty good for that thin of a, what is it, half-inch thick laptop.
Half an inch.
2.6 pounds. It's pretty impressive. Core M70 Broadwell processor. This is 14 nanometer. And it's pretty nice. Lenovo claims 9 hours of battery life, depending on usage. we'll see. You know, that's the problem when you get the really thin designs is battery size becomes an issue. You know what I'm talking about, Josh? You know what I'm talking
Nope. I don't know a thing you're talking about, and I don't get that innuendo.
about? Okay. And then the Yoga 14 is like the more business-centric. It's a 1080p screen, 4.1 pounds. Ugh.
It's so heavy.
0.82 inches thick. Oh, my God.
God, it's going to weigh down my shoulder.
It does not have a watch. It does not have a watch band style hinge. Oh, boo! But anyway, the Yoga 14 is $1,100, and the Yoga 3 Pro will be $1,349, starting at, of course, depending on the hardware you get there. Now, on to tablets designed by Ashton Kutcher. He
Didn't realize he went to MIT for electrical engineering.
Yeah, it's weird.
Unlike Miss Lisa Sue.
Who did not design the Lenovo Tablet 2 tablets running Android or Windows. So the Yoga tablets, despite I'm not really grasping the name combination that Yoga, they shouldn't be called Yoga probably, right? It was just a different kind of tablet, but it was an interesting design with the kickstand that it had on it, and the kind of the weird, what would you call that? Like the battery, but like the tube shape on the side of it that was actually doubled as storing battery, large battery, and as like a handle. So they're updating those. You can see here they've got an 8-inch Android, a 10-inch Android, and then an 8 and a 10-inch Windows device as well. They're running the Intel Atom Z3745.
Wait, did you notice something interesting there?
What, this picture?
No, scroll down.
Yep. Okay, gotcha.
The Windows machines are heavier.
That Windows license,
It really weighs it down.
adds it down. It weighs it down just a little bit. Why would that be?
There's too many bytes. I mean, it's so much less efficient.
Is it a larger battery?
It's the Windows sticker.
The Windows sticker. Yes, it's the Windows sticker. Okay.
It's the weight of Bill Gates' disdain of you.
Both the 8-inch,
on the tablet.
both the 8-inch and 10-inch displays are 1920 by 1200. 8 megapixel rear camera, backside illumination sensor, or I don't know what that is. Again, Atom Z3745 SoC. It's a quad core Bay Trail part at 1.86 gigahertz, 2 gigs of DDR3 memory, and then you've got internal flash storage, or 802.11 BGN, Bluetooth 4, battery life up to 18 hours. And the Android ones are 4.4 KitKat powered. Windows, obviously, Windows 8.1 with 1 year of Office 3. What's Jeremy call it? 58. Office 358. So we should be good there. Those are cool looking. That's an optional accessory, by the way, that keyboard in that picture. So,
well, one thing I have heard about the Android tablets is sometimes upgradability of them to the later Android operating systems is questionable.
Yes.
So that's really the question to ask about that. Is it because they just released Lollipop, right?
Right.
So,
yeah, that's true. 4.4 is the most recent publicly available version of the operating system. So that's actually good. And I think when we got the first Yoga tablets, they were already behind a point release when we got those then. So depending on when these actually ship, yeah, and I would agree with that. I don't know if I believe, we'd have to check. I don't think the Yoga tablets ever got operating system updates from Lenovo. If they did, then go check. I mean, we can check if they did. We can look that up, and we've still got those tablets here to check. So I would agree. Yes, for things like this, being able to count on support for updates for other operating systems is kind of important. So, and then finally from Lenovo, the Yoga Tablet 2 Pro. So you had the Yoga Pro, Yoga 3 Pro, we had the Yoga Tablet 2, and now we have the Yoga Tablet 2 Pro. And this is, again, a similar design, but it is a higher-end hardware, right? So it's a 13-inch tablet. It's a similar form factor, but 2560 by 1440 IPS display, right? What's that? 13.3 inch, yeah. It has a subwoofer. In the tubes on the side, it has a subwoofer. And
the subwoofer is a
And
series of tubes.
it is. Lenovo
No.
has added a Pico projector exclusive to the Tablet 2 Pro that is capable of displaying 854 by 40 resolution images at up to 50 inches and between 40 to 50 lumens, which is very low on the lumens.
That's just enough lumens for you not to be able to see it at all.
External I/O includes
Thank
micro
goodness
USB.
Kucher was there to
Yeah.
integrate
Yeah.
that
It's-
feature.
The odd thing with the specs on that is that they named it that it would be almost be a Microsoft what is it the Microsoft Surface Pro competitor, but the hardware specs don't.
Yeah, it's an Intel
It's-
Atom part. It's got
Yeah,
the same
I mean-
processor as the last tablets we just discussed.
I mean, you'd think that they would try to, they would want to do something like that, like make a Pro competitor, a Surface Pro competitor or something.
It's also running
'Cause I mean-
Android and not Windows.
Wait, what?
So it weighs less.
The tablet is running Android 4.4 KitKat
So
rather
waste.
than Windows 8.1.
Well, that's stupid.
So now it's an Android device with a Pico projector.
Oh, God.
Now I'm curious. Now I want to know. This one will be $499. While
You first had my attention. Now you have my curiosity.
So this one's $499. Keep in mind that the other 10-inch tablet, the one that doesn't have the subwoofer or the Pico projector, is $299. So the $200 premium gets you larger, higher resolution display, better audio, a projector, and a little bit more internal storage. And
Boy,
a
that
slightly
sounds
shorter battery
stupid.
life. But it's got a Pico projector.
But how much does it cost?
$499.
$499.
Remember when we had that Gigabyte SFF system with the little projector on it?
Yeah.
You held it in your lap and you projected on the ceiling. Yeah, that was kind of gross.
I think that was more than 50 lumens.
Yeah, I don't really know. Anyway, so that's Lenovo's news. Let's talk about AMD ARM NFV.
Do we have to?
I don't know what that is, so maybe not.
AMD ARM. Oh gosh, I didn't read Scott's article.
Hierofalcon SoC.
Okay, it's their 64-bit ARM CPU SoC, and they showed it off in kind of their
That is the coolest SoC nickname.
network
name I've
functions
seen.
virtualization solution. Nice.
Nice.
So basically, it's a 64-bit SoC used in network backbone type applications. It's low power, high performance, 64-bit, which
does anybody know what NFV stands for?
it scroll up.
Okay.
Network
Oh yeah. No, I'm
Network
very familiar with them.
functions virtualization.
Okay.
So essentially, this is a high-powered networking chip that'll do that whole 10 gigabit thingy.
Virtualizing a mobile packet core running subscriber calls. So this is a solution aimed at telecoms for use in communications network backbones, where AMD believes an ARM solution will offer reduced costs, both initial and operational, and increased network bandwidth. I just think they should have saved that code name for something that I'd have been more excited about.
This Hierofalcon is kind of cool. Cool name.
Hierofalcon.
Hyro.
Hyro. Okay, moving on. Samsung announces 60 gigahertz Wi-Fi's. Is this WiGig? I guess. Yeah. So, WiGig, Samsung, a member of the WiGig Alliance, announces that they have achieved 4.6 gigabits, otherwise known as 575 megabytes per second, under the 802.11ad standard. They have, quote, overcome the barriers to commercialization, which is good, I guess, so you can actually sell it. So 60 gigahertz. It has
So
several.
basically, if you're in the same room without any walls, it's going to be great.
I like this part from Scott. The band has several disadvantages, including resonance with oxygen molecules. And
Works best in an environment with only helium.
and its opacity to many solid objects, also known as not going through walls,
Yeah.
right? So there's that.
So if you're in a vacuum room,
60 gigahertz, that's a lot of gigahertz, right?
it is a
Beam
jiggle.
forming in particular is particularly useful for offsetting these line of sight properties, right?
So instead of running Ethernet cables over your house, you'll have antenna cables running to each room.
Yeah, but you gotta point them in the right area. But I mean, the idea of getting SATA SSD speed throughput wirelessly is awesome. Like, it's hard not to want that, and like that actually might, like, in our environment that I'm sitting in now, would actually be very useful. We have a giant open office space with no walls. We're all on one floor. And
Do you breathe noble gases?
we don't pump. We siphon oxygen now and pump in helium so that we talk a little bit higher when we do the podcast. My voice is usually much lower than this. And so I don't know. I'm still, they gotta do something. They'll figure it out.
I think the idea is that it's 60 gigahertz within a room, and then
You have
like,
Ethernet between them or something.
or 5 gigahertz or 2.4 or something communicating between the two.
Okay.
And only point to point in that room will go that fast.
I'm okay with that. You can do interesting things with that. Even if you have like home theater equipment that doesn't need wires anymore, right? Like, the idea is you set your laptop down on your desk, and your monitor and your external storage device all communicate through the wireless network very close locally, and it's just, there's no oxygen between your laptop and the monitor, I'm sure, so it should be fine. But I mean, it's not for a whole home network, I guess, right?
Hey, if you're in a room with a really talkative person, then that oxygen thing it's not a problem.
That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Intel made some money this quarter.
No.
Yeah, they did, and I know.
No.
But I can tell when Intel makes money because we see this image on the website. Only,
Oh, not the white
oh,
gate.
there we go.
There you have it.
All right, we see
When's the
this
last-
image on the website whenever Intel makes a lot of money.
The only
That's
time
not
that
possible,
Intel is
Ryan.
not made.
The PC is dying. It's dead. They can't
It
make
is.
money anymore.
Yeah, but the only time they did not make money in the past decade was when AMD successfully sued them, and they got a couple of $1 billion one quarter from them, and that was the only time Intel dropped into the negative because they had to pay out $2.9 billion to AMD. And what did AMD do with that?
I mean,
That's a
they
really
probably
good-
spent it on something.
Burned through it.
Burned through and paid off some debt.
Hired some more people. Oh,
Oh no! And then they fired him. Fired him when Rory came around.
and now he's gone. So anyway,
So anyway, we can go into the story. Intel had the best quarter yet in the history of the company.
that's impressive.
$14.55 billion. $3.3 billion in net income. They shipped 100 million processors this quarter.
That's,
100 million.
That's a lot of processors. Any breakdown on Core versus Atom versus?
Okay,
Phi
as Maury was talking about, the PC market
is dead.
we're in the post PC market, which of course highly resembles the PC market. It's doing very well. They made something. I mean, this is desktop PCs. This is notebook. This is convertible PC. Things like that. $9 billion of their revenue came from that.
$9
$9 billion.
Billion.
3.3 to 3.5 billion came from servers with those big ass Xeon processors.
Yeah, but ARM will just take it over, so it's fine.
It's
Whatever.
the cloud, man. Everything's going to the cloud.
Yeah, and you know what? The cloud works, unfortunately, so they're going to make some money there.
They do.
Yay, Intel.
So, is there anything in this story about how much money they gave to us?
No. Well, actually, they kind of did.
Okay.
A lot of low-cost tablets.
No, money they gave to us.
They didn't. They may have distributed money to shareholders, but are you a shareholder?
I'm not. I just wanted a fat check.
They did not give any money.
$1 billion
Okay, you know what?
is all I want.
Here's the bad problem with Intel. their processors are doing great against AMD, and so they don't sample as much. Why sample a couple extra 10 or 15 processors when we could save that money and still get the same coverage?
Well, I mean, why do you need coverage if you win everything all of the time?
Exactly. And so, marketing, that's...
Well, also, though, innovation tends to suffer, too, because they are in a dominant position. They can control how fast innovation goes, so there is no market pressure for them to innovate faster.
Let me ask you this, though. Honestly, how have they lacked in innovation over the past 5 years?
I would say that the move from Sandy Bridge to Ivy Bridge to Haswell has been modest in terms of performance. They're lacking innovation on the high performance side, not on the low power side. They're going where the direction they want to go on the low power side. But on the high performance side, I think they're lacking.
Well, I guess I can kind of agree with that. I mean, still, but they are still leading the world in process technology, and those savings are kind of coming to us. Even though they're making a higher margin, we can still get a really nice performing CPU for not a whole lot of money.
So wait, hey,
unless of course you're talking about the $999 X99 based cores. They're making some nice margin on those puppies.
Hey, Josh, you may have solved the conundrum with ID4, Independence Day, where they were able to hack into the alien ship with the Mac, because the alien ship was probably running an Intel processor because they didn't innovate, and the Mac had an Intel processor, so there you go.
I'll just roll with that one, Murray. Or Maury.
So Intel makes, as you say in the title, Mucho Dinero.
Mucho Dinero. But there is a bitter spot for Intel. Please. And this is exceptionally bitter. They made a lot of money. Their processors
Doesn't sound bitter yet, but go ahead.
Except in mobile.
Yeah.
So their mobile unit made $1 million in revenue.
In net revenue.
And that was down 98% from last quarter.
Wait, what?
So tablet chips and handheld chips made Intel $1 million in revenue.
Profit.
No, I'm saying that's revenue.
They lost
$1
only made $1 million on
They lost $1 billion this quarter with that division. Let me rephrase this. They lost $1 billion this quarter with that division.
Does mobile count tablets?
That is some tablets, yes. Maybe not the Lenovo's ones that we talked about, but the ones that we have currently.
I find that almost impossible to comprehend.
So essentially, pennies on the dollar that they sold these chips to the guys who integrated them into their tablets.
They're just giving it away to try to gain market share.
Exactly. And they've been working with Google to get better support in Android. They've been working with... Go ahead.
Even if they lost $1 billion in mobile,
because
they still made $3.3 billion total.
Yes.
All right, cool. I'm okay with that.
You know what? They are the market loss leader, and they're proud of it.
Let's move on.
Okay.
I'm tired of talking about how much money we don't have. Nexus 6 and Nexus 9 were announced. The Nexus 6 is a phablet, and I hate that word. It's a phone. It's a large phone, but it's a phone. It is built by Motorola. It is a 5.96-inch screen, so not quite 6 inches. So about average again, Josh. With a resolution of 2560 by 1440. Pixel density of 493. I find that interesting only in that the 6 Plus, iPhone 6 Plus has a 1080p screen. So an interesting change there. This has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 805. It's got 2.7 gigahertz, up to 2.7 gigahertz. It's got the Adreno 420 graphics, capacities of 32 and 64 gigs. It has pretty lady hands holding it.
Look at her beige fingernails.
That's interesting. All right.
Who does beige fingernails anymore?
Hand models.
Apparently.
Camera has an f2.0 lens, optical image stabilization, 13 megapixels. It comes with Lollipop. The operating system, maybe the candy. I don't know. It'd be an interesting pack-in with your Nexus 6 order. It will ship in November, pre-order in late October. I think it's October 29th. And it will actually be available on all carriers in the U.S. AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, and even Verizon, which is the first time in a long time that's happened.
You know what's kind of cool about that phone?
The Lollipop next to it?
No, the dual LED ring flash.
Ah, okay.
You're going to have some really neat effects
This guy.
from the ring flash.
It is essentially like the design, like the physical design of the phone looks cool too. I think it's basically the Moto X just blown up a little bit. And let's see, I don't think there's anything else that really stands out to me here in the weird and the full specs. 3 gigs of memory, that's awesome. 802.11 AC 2x2, which is cool. 3200 milliamp hour battery. They're claiming talk time of 24 hours. Internet usage time of 8.5 hours on Wi-Fi, 7 hours on wireless. We'll see how that goes. And turbocharger gives you 6 hours of power in 1 minute. I think that's supposed to be 15 minutes. That's another typo on their spec pages. 15 minutes of charging will give you potentially 6 hours of usage, which is kind of interesting. So that's this Nexus 6. It's also going to be really expensive, $649 and $699.
It's not really expensive.
I mean, it's really expensive compared to what people have expected from Nexus phones, right? That's fair to say. The Nexus 5 was, what, $399 at the top end, right? So it's more in line with other high-end smartphones if you buy them off contract, but it's kind of not what people had come to expect from what a Nexus device was. The Nexus 7 was very low cost, very aggressive. The Nexus 5 was low cost, very aggressive. Nexus 6, not that. Then the Nexus 9 may be more interesting from a technological standpoint in that it is a 9-inch tablet. It is powered by NVIDIA Tegra K1. Also, the version of Tegra K1 that has the 64-bit Denver cores in them, not the ARM Cortex A15 cores. So this is an 8.9-inch, 2048 by 1536-inch resolution screen, 6,700 milliamp hour battery. It also has the Lollipop operating system, but it has that Denver K1 in it. What do you expect from that, Josh?
It's going to be faster than the Apple's 64-bit processor. It's going to be probably faster than the A57-based units. I mean, NVIDIA spent a lot of time designing this from the ground up. They have some interesting things in that because memory is cheap anymore in these devices, they have 128 megs in main memory that they use for this translation program. So they get commands. Common ones are translated very, very quickly. Uncommon ones take a little bit more time, but still, supposedly, it outperforms ARM v8 native architectures with what they do. So it's going to be interesting to see what NVIDIA is actually put out to market. And I mean, I'm sure you're going to be benchmarking this like the wind. And it'll be interesting to see because NVIDIA needs a big win here. Their Tegra stuff so far has not performed as admirably as they were hoping, especially for their investors.
That's fair.
K1 kind of beats almost every SoC out there right now.
I don't think it's about benchmark performance. I think he's talking about acceptance, adoption.
Yeah, but I think even we've seen a little bit of an uptick on that. And being in a Nexus phone will help.
This is the Shield tablets are great. You got the Xiaomi device. What was the other thing? There was the TK1.
Some Chromebooks.
A couple of
TK1
Chromebooks.
doesn't count.
TK1 doesn't count. This is more interesting to me because this is the first device with a Denver in it. Period. Outside of test devices. So
well, at CES we saw them boot up an operating system on a 64-bit.
Fantastic.
Hey, look, we can scroll.
Now this device is supposed to go on pre-order tomorrow, the 17th, 16th, 17th, one of those days, and shipping by November 3rd. So available very soon. it's a really interesting device. Like I really want to try it, mostly because I want to see how that SoC goes in there, and I trying out Lollipop and all that stuff works out too.
Do we know what Lollipop brings to the table in terms of features and performance?
Well, a 64-bit kernel.
64-bit support is
That's
key
nice.
there. And it has a lot of UI changes. There are a lot of performance changes. There's a lot of multitasking changes. But I honestly haven't read up on enough of the Android L stuff yet. But obviously we need to, now that we're going to get devices that have it in there. So there's going to be an LTE version as well. This is also, I guess this isn't super expensive. You're looking at $399 for the 16 gig model and $479 for the 32 gig model.
So it's cheaper than the Nexus 6?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It is. But Nexus 6 has
Has an LTE radio in it.
the LTE version of this is $599.
For 16 gigs?
32.
Mm.
Yeah, so this is still cheaper. Like the LTE version of the tablet is cheaper than the phone, which is
Just carry on a 9-inch tablet as your phone.
it's odd, right? Just hello.
I mean, it's not that much bigger than the 6-inch.
It's true. It's only about 3 inches.
3 inches more.
3 inches larger diagonal diameter. So yeah, that's a little bit odd. I mean, the camera is better in the Nexus 6.
I bet NVIDIA's
screen
cutting
is
a
better.
bit of a deal on SoCs.
NVIDIA might be cutting the deal. I think this is a big deal for NVIDIA because not just that Denver is out, but that Denver's out in a Google Nexus device, meaning that Google will make sure that Android is working correctly with Denver, right? Maybe giving them a foot in other doors down the road as well. So
And it's being supported in software.
yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. I will either be getting one from NVIDIA or buying one the day after tomorrow. So, God, I hope I don't have to buy it. I don't know, just tired of buying hardware. I got shelves of tablets. Our last little bit of news here. I don't know why I added this in because I thought it looked funny. Aerocool launches colorful and practical Xpredator Cube chassis. How many of these you want to buy, Josh?
3.
3
In that color. But look at the fins in the back. I mean, if you get some hydraulics on there,
Wow.
once the things start heating up, it opens up the fins.
That
and
looks
it
like that
looks-
Alienware case design.
That's what I was thinking too, Ken.
They totally ripped that off.
But didn't the Alienware design actually move?
yeah.
Yeah, they had
suppose.
motors, temperature-based motors.
That's a pretty cool idea. Does this do that? No.
No.
This is a mini ITX or micro ATX case. It looks like, based on the design here. I don't know. It looks okay. Like that red and black theme on there too.
Bright green, baby.
I
all the
imagine
way.
NVIDIA will buy a handful of these to take to shows. I don't know.
It's wide, but wider is better.
$125. That seems kind of steep.
Apparently the fins do move. Maybe just not automatically.
The fins do move, but not automatically. Open
You
and
have
shut
to
switch
use
for the
a
top
finger.
ventilation. It says it right there.
Ken, they're powered by you.
Powered by.
They're eco-friendly.
So anyway, that's an interesting little thing. If you want to see outskirts of case design, if you will. Let's get into our hardware software picks of the week. Mine is interesting. I just got this in today. This is I've talked about it many times that we have a Sonos system at our house that I really like. This is the brand new Sonos Boost, and it is essentially I guess it's a range extender for your Sonos system. I think Alan's not here to verify. I think Alan has a Sonos, but only has one device, right? He has a sound bar. I think he has a Sonos soundbar, but that's the only one device. If you have lots of devices throughout your house, the idea is that they create a mesh network between them, and they don't actually use your local network. They just kind of, one of those devices feeds off your network to get an internet connection. Apparently, they were having issues with these units being spread out and dropouts in music or slow response times and transitions. So they basically have updated their hardware a little bit to support higher range, higher power wireless signals. So apparently what this Sonos Boost does is it replaces the bridge in your system and allows you to, I think it's, what did I say it was? It's a 3x3 antenna setup, and it's 2.4 and 5 gigahertz and it's a 360, right? So you put this in the middle of kind of where your everything is, and it basically extends the range, and it will improve connectivity for your Sonos system. And I think this is going to be $99, so a fairly reasonable, especially for Sonos hardware pricing wise, a fairly reasonable addition into your configuration. So if you have a Sonos setup at all, and you've ever noticed any kind of stability issues or not compatibility issues, but just timing issues or dropouts of audio when you're listening to it, this might be something worth looking into. And it looks like it is on Amazon today, even for sale already, for $99. Yeah, that's pretty much where we're at. Sonos Boost, if you will. Josh.
Yes. You know what? You can never have enough game clients on your PC. Just ask Uplay.
Okay, yeah.
Or that one that the Russians guy did. I think it was Why You Play.
Why you play?
Why You Play is the Wings of Fury or something. I can't remember.
So
it's terrible, and it was shut down very, very shortly. GOG.com. Your favorite inexpensive old games guys. They've brought out Galaxy. If you join their Galaxy client, you can get AVP, the original, for free. Free.
So
and apparently,
this is a Steam competitor?
Sure. But you know what? It's not DRM. Who cares about DRM? You own it, and it works. And it's cheap games.
Ownership. Wunishi.
They're destroying ownership.
That's not good.
But I want to own the stuff I bought. Can they just take it away from me at any time? There's no ownership?
Yes, they can.
Because you got it. It's all
but then I own
yours.
No, as long as you have the original CD, you're okay, Ken.
Do I have to go to the manual and find the specific word and type it in?
Yeah, yes, you do.
Page 19, paragraph 3.
Physical rights
second
management.
word.
I guess this could be cool. I guess I'd try this. I'd sign up for that. I'd sign up for that free beta. Is what I'm telling you. Aliens vs. Predator, I played the crap out of that game many
in the days.
many years ago. I think I was in high school when I played
Yes,
that.
you were, unfortunately.
That was actually a really fun multiplayer game.
They had computers then?
Yeah, they were slow.
That must have sucked.
To let you know,
3D capabilities were subpar.
Justin and I would bring my computer to Justin's house, at his mom's house. Obviously, we were in high school, and put our computers on the dining room table. That was anyway.
You didn't have girlfriends, did you?
I don't know, but
Anyway.
it was a lot more fun back then. I'll tell you that. All right,
Because you had
Maury.
to put effort into it.
Exactly.
A 50-pound monitor and a 30-pound case.
Yeah, you did. Maury,
Yeah.
what's your pick?
My pick is a test bench.
All right,
I've probably
which
shown
one?
this before. Primochill makes a really nice test bench made out of acrylic. It comes in clear, comes in black, comes in white, and you can basically pick any color motherboard tray you want on it. The one I have, I'm going to be putting up a review of it soon, probably within the next couple weeks. I have literally no time. But the one I have has a carbon fiber top. The nice thing about this is it's very customizable. It fits basically any size water cooling kit you could. On mine, I have a 4x120 rad running on it, and all sorts of stuff. But you can basically customize the layout of the motherboard tray, so you can run switches through it, you can run tubing through it, buttons, whatever. It's a really nice system.
Yeah.
It's not too bad. I mean, it's costs about, all said and done, it's about $150 for the base kit, and depending on what retailer you go to, you can usually get pretty good deals. I for this kind of stuff, I usually go to Performance PCs because their prices are pretty good and they don't kill you on shipping too bad. But $150 or $140 for a test bench, an open air test bench, isn't bad at all. Especially, it's very high quality. So it's not a bad unit at all, and you do have a lot of configuration options with it, and you can get aftermarket parts for it as well.
That looks pretty cool. Yeah, just found an installation video on YouTube, looking at seeing how that works.
But I will have we will have
Like
a
the
review on
angled
this
motherboard
thing
tray.
again in sometime in the next few weeks to a month. So
All right. Very cool. I guess that's going to round up the show for us. Jeremy and Alan say, hey, we'll see you next week. And again, PCPer, the URLs you need to know, of course, PCPer.com/podcast. That's where the RSS is, the downloads for the MP3s, the YouTube videos are embedded there. And PCPer.com/subscribe to sign up for our mailing list. We will have another Borderlands game stream next week, with lots of prizes to give away, so make sure you sign up for that. Make sure you're aware of that. We did create a public Google Calendar that we'll be sharing on the website very soon underneath the schedule, if I can remember to do that this week. We'll have that there, so if you just want to subscribe through Google Calendar, RSS, XML, or whatever, you'll have that capability as well. Anything else I'm forgetting? I don't think so. Guess that's it until next week. Guys, the fall is going to be awesome for PC gaming. There's a ton of games coming out, and PC hardware will be exciting as well. I can tell you, it is already exciting. It will be more exciting in the not too distant future. So stick around. What I'm saying is, listen next week, please. Just hang out. It'll be cool. I guess that's it, guys. We'll see you next week. I'm Ryan.
I'm Jersh.
I'm Maury.
Mixing it up.